Alright, hello. Today, this Friday evening, I have a vague idea for a video and subjects that I want to talk about. So the usual ramble. But I think this is just the format that I have come to, and I will stick with, because every time I try to vision some new and better ways to make videos, I just come to the point that I can't talk about anything that I don't know, and so making videos about some things that I'm interested, for example, would be kind of, they would not be good, because I could not do them. I could not say those things as like truth, because only thing you can know is what you experience, and maybe these videos are just for that, just for sharing my experience. And now maybe I present sometimes stuff that I have come across to, and kind of present it as something true. But that's like, I always try to use myself as a mirror to kind of reflect everything out of my own experience of the things that I have learned, let's say. Because let's take Sri Aurobindo. His sayings and texts I can kind of present in this way, I feel like, because I get this feeling from him that he writes from his own experience, and I have not found anything in his works that would betray that. He does not speculate, and when he does, he says it, and he presents all the viewpoints that would make one doubt if he is not talking about something he has not experienced. But and that's why I like talking about him, because also with his writings, they do not confuse me, because most stuff that I come across to is just information that I have to process and pass, and often it just leaves me more confused. Okay, let's take example. I have been reading this. I briefly got interested in, well, it's like a long ongoing interest, but I did dive into past civilizations and Atlantis in particular, and I have been reading these channelings of Edgar Cayce, who was like some guy in the, I don't know, 100 years ago more, that channeled a lot of stuff. He was called Sleeping Prophet or something, and he very interesting texts, and he's in these channelings talking about Atlantis and how it came to be and how it got destroyed and all this. But it's something you cannot just take at the face value because of the nature of the information. But a lot of it makes sense, and it helps me to build my own story about it, and just yeah. And one from what I have gathered from other places, much of it makes sense. But that was just to make a point that even though I would like to talk about something like Atlantis, it feels wrong because it would just be a story. Maybe I could tell the story that I have gathered, but then coming to Sri Aurobindo, it does not make me feel like this. It's always very precise, and just knowing what I know about him, it was not channeling or something like that he did. It was he wrote from very high place of consciousness. So yeah, that's something. But the idea I had, and also the reason I got interested in it was because in his book, The Human Cycle, he kind of briefly mentions that there was this previous civilization that I don't remember the exact words, but it was something like they tried to achieve this spiritualization of mankind by a kind of rapid miracle, and it failed. It was just a kind of passing notion that there has been this attempt, and another place, in some place that people were asking him about Atlantis, actually he mentions that it is very possible that they had developed this very sort of occult technology, occult way to approach nature, and the way we approach science right now, they would approach it from different point of view, from an occult point of view, and that's why they kind of, that was their downfall. And then reading the Edgar Cayce texts, and he talks about the exact same thing. But there's so much history that goes into it, that so much more, that it's not just one whoop they were gone, but it was kind of their downfall because they would not wait to like build their civilization and their understanding from the ground up, but they would kind of attempt to spiritualize whatever that means and however it's gonna look like. They would attempt it through a miracle, through something without going through all the necessary steps. And he also writes that it is a good sign with our civilization that we are even this excessive materialistic impulse and development. He says it's actually a good sign because that's something to build on. So even though it might look bad sometimes, he always brings it around and brings like the purpose and the meaning of it all into the picture. So that's why I like Sri Aurobindo. But this was not supposed to be about this video. It was supposed to be about my own difficulties with my with my own life, and because these are big ideas and Sri Aurobindo always talks about how it must be from the individual up that this thing happens. It must be the individual first to make the change in him, and maybe this is kind of the purpose for his yoga. And I feel like I have come to this yoga for this purpose. And it's something that has come to stay because it is the first kind of path or teaching that does actually resonate, and that's also because it's not a fixed path. It's just a framework for development, a framework for developing one's own life. But I have come to think so highly of him that I just have to keep reading him, even though most, I don't know what it's so for me it's so stimulating, so it's the best thing that has happened to me in a long time, because he challenges me to get better on every area of my life, and that should be enough, right? And yeah, so it's so stimulating for my like intellect and my thinking, because I like to think a lot, and I don't even know if I like it, but it's just something that happens. And he, as I said, is someone that I can trust. But this was not also on my list of things to talk about, because on this path to try to develop consciously and to kind of go beyond what is our current state of consciousness by large. The first step seems to be to individualize, to find your own center and your own being. But with this individualization, there comes up problems, and one of them is over sensitivity, or just like being, and when you are no longer so much identified with the group, it can, and I'm just talking again, I must say that I'm talking about my experience and whatever it's worth. Yeah, it can get lonely and painful, because feeling of isolation and being so different, and like feeling so much about what's happening, and like seeing like why is nobody else seeing this, and why are they so mean and evil and all this. There comes this sensitivity, and I'm kind of consulting this text, which is not by Sri Aurobindo, but by the mother of, because Sri Aurobindo, he was not working alone. He was working with the mother, whom he referred as the mother, and he was kind of, she was his force and action in the world after he retired from his own activities mostly, and devoted himself to writing and commenting and his own inner work. Anyway, this is by her, that he's, because this was very big clue for me, very big realization, which I'm still working out, as always, working something out. Okay, I will read a little bit. It is a stage of evolution in which the being is ready for self-giving, for he is conscious of himself. But as a result of the work of individualization, of intellectualization he has undergone, he has acquired the habit of considering everything in relation to himself, and it has carried the illusion of personality to its utmost limit. So yeah, there comes this point where I feel either I am at this point or I am just over it, but I'm somewhere in between when I'm realizing this, that I have started to consider just everything in relation to myself, and it's on the border of like it's on the border of being like super egoistical, because it is. Okay, I'm just trying to find the next part that I wish to share. But it's like I will try to condense it in my own words. There comes this point when you start to consider everything into yourself, and because there is so much more in the outside life that it is easier to feel pain and suffering and grief about things, and then one gets kind of addicted to this grief, seeing everything from your own point of view and being kind of being victimized by it, but in some the text is so good, but I can't find the right places in it. Okay, here it is. And since in life opportunities for suffering are more frequent than opportunities for joy, the need to experience and study these subtle movements of feeling develops an inclination, a taste for suffering, a true mystical aberration in which nothing but self-seeking through suffering, a refined but very pernicious form of egoism. So what's the cure for this? This thing. It's detachment from this thing, from this suffering, but not the detachment which is equivalent to the annihilation of the capacity to feel, but the detachment which brings about the abolition of the capacity to suffer. So not the kind of insensitive detachment that you don't feel the suffering of the others, and what's going on, but to detachment from the suffering of it, to feel it and to be it, and but to plant a seed of joy and peace and kind of joy and peace in it, because I don't know, through finding one's soul, through finding God, there is this feeling of immutable peace and joy in the heart of it, but it's so difficult to keep hold of it. But it is the ultimate reality in this old kind of Vedic thinking, or what Sri Aurobindo talks about. They call it Sat Chit Ananda, and I have tried to kind of translate it to, I think Sat is consciousness and being, and Chit is existence and this world or something, and Ananda is the joy and bliss. So it's I don't know, I don't remember how I translated it. It was something like the joy of conscious existence. Okay, that's it. The joy of conscious existence, which is at the bottom of it all. And from there to move, but how to keep this thing when there are so many reasons to feel all sorts of feelings that are not this, with all the horrible things that have gone and are going on. Then she goes on to say that you have to even stop noticing that you are this impersonal and just kind of lose yourself into it. So that would be the secret of living, and the biggest difficulty, biggest psychological difficulty, which I find for myself at this moment, which I kind of realized through this text written in 28th of May 1912. So more than 100 years ago. Some people were already like thinking about this sort of stuff. I think I will leave this text for anybody interested. It's not too long. And leave this leave this video like this. But first I will read a few lines from Savitri, which also spoke to me, and I will just read them and end this video. So, he saw the doubtfulness of all things here, the incertitude of man's proud, confident thought, the transience of the achievements of his force, a thinking being in an unthinking world, an island in the sea of the unknown. He is a smallness trying to be great, an animal with some instinct of a god. His life a story too common to be told, his deeds a number summing up to naught, his consciousness a torch lit to be quenched, his hope a star above a cradle and grave. And yet a greater destiny may be his, for the eternal spirit is his truth. So, thanks for watching and bye.